purchased a bicycle. We'd been wanting one just to ride, and my daughter had one, so we found one. Me and my wife found a bicycle built for two. So I said, well, this would be kind of neat right here. So we tried it, and so I come back, went home, and my little buddy, Lilo, that worked with me, one of my helpers, come over, and he said, I said, get on the back of here. Let's ride around the road. And I couldn't even go from here to not even 2 houses. And I felt, that's when I knew something, I was short-winded. So when she got home, I said, something's not right. I was more or less just short-winded. I wasn't hurting. I went to the doctor about a week later.
If you think you have symptoms of chest pain, pressure, shortness of breath, something that's new or different, that you take the time to bring it to your doctor's attention. I don't want you to sit at home and wait. So Tommy suffered from coronary artery disease, and he's a perfect example of not everybody has to get classic chest pain. That was because he had a blockage in the main artery that was supplying blood to his heart. He's a perfect example of somebody who delayed getting care at the first sign of symptoms. He's quite lucky, in fact.
Prior to this, 4 months prior to this, I lost my father. A month prior to that, I lost my brother. A month prior to losing my brother, I lost my mother. I didn't like going to see the doctors. Like I said, I hardcore worked. I had people, I was working them, and I'd work right beside them. I mean, you wouldn't, and they were boys, I was in my 50s, and they were in their 20s and 30s. So you could and I was hanging with them.
So stress plays an important role in many facets of heart disease. So Tommy experienced many major stressors in his life before he was diagnosed with coronary artery disease. We know that stress can raise blood pressure. We know that it increases our cortisol level, which plays a role in heart disease and plaque rupture. We know that it even increases our levels of inflammatory markers, not to mention just our overall sense of well-being. Clearly, all of those life issues played a role. Our health often gets put on the back burner, and so that we take care of everything else, and we're more likely to ignore symptoms that we might address if those other issues weren't going on.
Well, after all I went through, she saved my life. She was my primary doctor at one time, then she became a heart doctor. We got a lot closer. I went and see her one day, and they said, you can't see her. I told my wife that we couldn't see her. And I said, what do you mean you can't see her? They said, she's in the room next door, Pat, laying on the floor.
There was an episode once where Tommy had come for an office visit, and I'll tell a little something about myself. I also have high blood pressure or hypertension, and my medicine had recently been adjusted, and my blood pressure had gotten too low, and I actually had not been feeling well and had a syncopal episode in the office, and meaning that I nearly passed out in the office, and this was in between seeing patients. And so they had canceled the rest of the afternoon's patients.
I wasn't leaving. It's funny now, but It got quiet in the whole doctor's office. Still hadn't left. It was me and her then. Her husband come in here and said, they got her under control. But I was bawling. I sat up and I wasn't going. I got that. I told him to leave me and go check on her.
Tommy got very upset to the point that I, with my IV bag of fluids, walked over to Tommy's room to prove to him that I was indeed fine.
My lady come walking in that room. The doctor, they were laying on the floor, had an IV in her hand and in her arm to come to see if I was okay, to make me leave because I wasn't going.
The American Heart Association is such a very important organization. It spends a lot of its resources doing research and educating our community on heart disease. There's not a more important disease that affects so many of us. We've done a wonderful job educating women about breast cancer and all other cancers, but fortunately, most of us aren't going to die from breast cancer. We're going to die from heart disease, heart attacks, strokes. Unfortunately, none of us are immune.
Listen to what they have to tell you, please. If you catch it before, you wouldn't have to go through what I went through. If you have any doubt, just go and see her. She's an angel. She really is.
In August 19th to be exact, everyone, young and old, can come out and show their support for the American Heart Association by participating in the Heart Walk. I'd like to take this time to invite all of you to participate in the Heart Walk. We see many folks who walk arm in arm with their loved one. There's not a person, again, or a subset of our community that's not affected by heart disease. I'd love to see you all out there on August 19th.
I'd have to go walk just to show people that if I can do, I'm 63 now, if I can do it and get around, it saved my life. They had to do this all to me, but it saved my life, and I'd recommend it to anybody.